Sorry, I think I heard a lizard or something. Hi, everyone. It's Christine Kopr reporting from not Vancouver, BC, but in a little town north of Waco in Costa Rica. My family and I have decided to take a little bit of an extended holiday during the Christmas season and are celebrating from this beautiful country. Today, we're actually staying at a little resort that's literally in the jungle, but almost across the street from the ocean, maybe a couple kilometers away. And it's pretty spectacular here. The second we showed up, there were macaws just wild in the trees here, howler monkeys, anteaters. We didn't have to go anywhere. We could just walk over to our room in this little jungle resort and see this incredible wildlife and in spectacular weather. So for today, I'm going to run through all of the statistics that came out for the end of November. So that's your December market report. And we're just waiting for the end of December to roll around so that we can report on the rest of December and the year of 2023, which I have to say was probably one of the most spectacular years in real estate history, considering over the last year and a half, we've had a 5% increase in interest rates over a year and a half, going from rock bottom, almost 0%. Like, seriously, like some people had interest rates that were under 1%, and now, qualifying at 8 and 9% and getting rates in the sixes. It's been quite the phenomenon to see this change. And also, while we did have a correction, to also see how sticky prices have been so far and in today's marketplace. So let's get straight to the stats so we can fill you in on what's been happening. And then afterwards, some of the news that's been transpiring, which you've probably heard about, but we're going to quickly touch on with all the new zoning policies. So your economic drivers, definitely consumer confidence is moderating, but we started putting this presentation together actually a couple of weeks ago when things were not feeling great. And in the last few weeks, there's been more and more positive sentiment with the interest rates, the fixed term market changing, and now there's starting to be more competition in the mortgage market. So I think perhaps seeing a little bit more support for the buyer and consumer confidence. The inflation and economic activity, well, there's actually been an increase in job loss. So there's an overall unemployment rate for all of Canada, which has increased to 5.8%, but our job losses or unemployment rate in BC has tightened up a little bit. Some jobs are growing, but overall, some jobs are being lost. And that's actually what the government wants to see. They do want to see job loss and wage reduction. So there's less money in the economy to continue to purchase product, which has an impact on inflation. The great news is, though, is inflation is slowing and it has been holding pretty much at par. It's funny, as they increase rates to control inflation, they do actually also increase inflation. So luckily, some of the other components like gas, etc., have come down further. So that's helped offset some of those costs, but obviously everybody's feeling it in their overall everyday shopping with their groceries, their rents, their mortgages, etc. And of course, we are still in the very beginning of having many mortgages roll over into this new interest rate environment. We had holds in September and October for interest rates. December 6th was a hold. And yes, the bond market has come down about 1% since it really spiked there in October with really strong inflation fears, especially when things uptick there for a little bit. And of course, inventory is moderating, but it's still at pretty low levels. And I have a feeling that we're probably going to see a particularly active spring because it feels like things are flattening out here. There needs to be some acceptance that there's not going to be some crazy decreases in prices. Obviously, that is really specific on the product, but if you have, that perfect cream puff of a home, move-in ready, looks great, no issues. If it's strata, no upcoming pending levies, not close to construction. I mean, those properties fly off the shelves. Anything that requires a renovation or anything that you need to put money into, because there's still issues with trades and the inflation is really felt on the side of renovations, contractors, supply chain. Some buyers just don't want to have to go through that because it's going to cost them a lot more. And if they are going to go through it, then they want to get it at the right price, especially with financing costs where they are. So a couple visuals touching on some of these things. So you can see here the 12-month change in CPI. So luckily, inflation has really come down. That's fantastic news. Here's the unemployment rate for Canada at 5.8. It's upticked a little bit. And then the unemployment rate for BC has come down a little bit. So we're looking from the country as a whole, which is what really influences the Bank of Canada, and then down to what's happening in BC, where people need to be able to service their existing mortgages and keep their jobs in order to do that. Here's a look at your 5-year fixed mortgage rate and what's happened in the bond market over history, going back all the way to the 2000s. Here we are today. We're starting to come off, and hopefully we're going to see some moderation in the new year. There's actually been some talk about decreases to the Bank of Canada prime rate. Even the Fed, the US Fed, has made some hints that they might be decreasing this year. Personally, my guesstimate is it's going to take a little while longer before they start cutting, because the second they start cutting, you will experience exuberance in the marketplace and there will be more competition. There are definitely people who want to buy their homes right now, and they're sitting on the sidelines waiting for those opportunities or the confidence to know that they're entering the market in a good place with some stability. And so the second that there's interest rate increases, you bet there's going to be a bit of positive euphoria and the market will change. At times like this, when there's some uncertainty, of course, it's the best time to be buying, not the best time to be selling. But of course, if you're selling and buying, if the market's getting hot, you're going to sell for higher, but you're going to pay more as well. So you really just want to be trading in the same market and doing it for the right reasons for you at the right time. Quickly cycling back here, though, the 5-year Canada bond, you can see here how we peaked out almost at 4.5%, and now we're trending closer to the 3% range, sitting at 3.2. So the bond market has really tempered down even lower than it was before the Bank of Canada decided to increase interest rates. Some of the other big news, which is going to change the landscape in Vancouver, it's going to take time, but of course, our BC government came out with new zoning policies. So just simply from single family homes, anyone with a lot in Vancouver that has 3,000 square feet and below can actually put on 3 units. You can just automatically are able to do 3 units if you have a lot that's 3,000 square feet, or you can go 4 units if your lot is larger than 3,000 square feet. And if you're within 400 meters of a bus stop, you can get up to 6 unit. And I believe that bus stop needs to have at least 2 bus lines coming through. There are some details to this coming out, but this is kind of the overall scope of what it's going to look like. We're going to be able to build up to 3 stories on your single family lot. If you already own a home, you could be beside a home with 3 stories beside it. If you're looking to purchase single family, well, single family can now also be multifamily, which was really challenging to do in the past. So it's instant density now throughout the entire city in RS zones, so residential zoning. There's going to be some recommended legislation coming out with respect to minimum site coverage, setbacks, etc., as well as maximum parking requirements, which I think they're going to be limiting, especially if you're going to be closer to those bus stops. So anyone with single family property has just been given all this opportunity for density, or if you want to create housing, this is fantastic. It allows for more multifamily. It doesn't mean that all homes that are going to be purchased are going to be turned into that, because there's going to be a desire to have single family homes where people can afford them and want them. But the fact is that the density is allowed, but I don't think it's going to happen as fast as everybody thinks, because of course, market conditions still have to be favorable and you have to get financing at rates that make this stuff make sense. It still comes down to economics, and currently between construction costs and finance costs and land costs, I don't see a rush of people heading out there to be developing these things. However, you never know. It might make sense if you've already held the property for a while and you're looking to monetize parts of your home. And part of the government's goal is to do multi-generational housing. If you own a big lot, you can build for yourself and your kids and grandparents, and everyone can have their own separate spaces, but still be on one plot of land, and help make that more affordable when you spread it out amongst everybody else. And then the next big one is the transit-oriented development areas. So if you're close to a SkyTrain station or a future SkyTrain station, we can build up automatically 20 stories within 200 meters of that station. When you go between 400 and 800, you're getting to, I think it's 12 stories. And then once you hit within 400 and 800, you're getting 8 stories. So just something to be aware of. If you live close to a SkyTrain station, you can have towers being built around you eventually. Of course, land assembly is going to need to happen, and all of that needs to come together again, and that's going to take time, and the economic needs to work. And we have big developers right now that are just shelving their projects because the economics don't work. So again, nothing that is going to rapidly have massive changes. So while the federal government wants to see cities and forcing them to have all these additional units built unless there's some kind of economic financing policies that come along with it. I just don't see how this is going to come together so quickly. But the fact is that the opportunity is here. And when it does make sense, it is going to have an impact and change the face of our city and create the density, hopefully, that we need to help bring real estate into more moderate pricing. Those are some of the big changes that have happened. Here's kind of a picture of the SkyTrain lines. Of course, there's also impact around anywhere that has a bus exchange or bus stop. So you need to look at the policies and see how they could impact you, or maybe guide your investment thesis if you're going to go out there and maybe take advantage of some of these policies. So a lot has happened in this year. Inflation is not just a thing that's happening in Canada. Even being in Costa Rica here, a country where you would think that your dollar would go further, well, a lot of US dollar has immigrated here. And especially during COVID, I think, as the world has been able to learn that it can work from anywhere, when you bring in stronger currencies and you bring in foreign investment, so us Canadians or Americans, we are the foreigners coming into other countries, you can see the impact on real estate prices. And in fact, everything here is basically priced in US dollars. And as a Canadian, it's actually quite expensive because it's priced at US prices in US dollars. So if you're in touristic locations, you're going to see that things are expensive, and even land is expensive here. We're going to be doing a little bit more digging on that and learning about opportunities here, but it's not like going and buying a beautiful house on a beach for, $200,000 or $300,000 Canadian. Everything is pretty much priced just as similarly as we see in Vancouver. And even a place like Tamarindo, we saw in Engel Volkers, we saw Sotheby's office, Keller Williams office, Remax offices, and properties at 1.7, 2 million, obviously hotspots, but just like Vancouver is a hotspot. So it's very interesting to see how inflation truly is a global phenomenon, and so is the movement of money around the world. Obviously, there's places you can go that are much more affordable, just like if you go to the Fraser Valley or you go out into the country like this. There is always give and take. Anyhow, I would love to be able to share some videos of the howler monkeys and the macaws, which are beautiful. Wow, to see these parrots and just their wild habitat is so cool, and it's just an everyday thing here. I will definitely try to get you some shots of that. And with that, I wish you and your families the very best over the holidays, especially when there's so much going on in the world. It makes us so grateful. It makes me so grateful to be able to spend the time with my family, and I hope the same for you. I wish you lots of health. I wish you lots of prosperity. All the best, and we'll be keeping in touch. Take care. I'm Christine Kopr with Sotheby's Realty. Thank you for tuning in, and I will be reporting again next month.